Chapter 71. As soon as Chin Mo entered the club, he saw his silly agent standing on his tiptoes, waiting for someone. Feng Yi was indeed waiting for someone, but the person he was waiting for never showed up. After seeing his almighty, his eyes lit up. CEO, didn't you say that Spadesy would come? Where is he? I've been waiting for him here for a long time. And I had to disguise myself. If the reporters recognized me, they would definitely catch me for an interview. You know, I'm actually very popular. Chin Mo glanced at his head with a hat on, and his voice was indifferent. Is this the result of your disguise? You're just a stupid fisherman. Feng Yi decisively turned his head to ask Secretary Liang, don't I look good? Secretary Liang blinked. Feng Yi felt that he had enough of his almighty's poisonous tongue. He took off his hat. Even if I don't look good, where's Spadesy? He's doing a test inside. Chin Mo threw down this sentence and walked to the test room. When the people in the club saw his handsome face, they all took a step back and couldn't help but cover their mouths. Almighty! Almighty Chin actually came. The outside of the club was in an uproar. It was the third round of the test in the test room. This time, they were logged into Hero to test their ability to clear dungeons. They were all using their own accounts. Manager Li was still angry about Fujio's behavior just now. He walked in circles and said coldly, let me tell you, if you're playing a game, you should have the attitude of playing a game. Don't be like that wastrel who just left. Does he think that the Chin Corporation is a place that anyone can enter? Then you guys. Before he could finish his words, he was shocked by the person standing at the door. See President. Why is he here? Manager Li looked at that tall and noble figure and immediately walked up to him. CEO Chin Mo didn't even look at him. He walked in with an indifferent face. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit, looking extremely noble. All the players stopped what they were doing and looked up at him. They couldn't hide their excitement. Almighty Chin. They saw the real Almighty Chin. Chin Mo's fame wasn't just because of his face, but also because of his outstanding maneuvering skills. Needless to say, he wasn't just the Prince Charming in the hearts of women. He was also the hero that many players wanted to follow. Now that he had appeared here, it naturally caused a frenzied reaction. Chin Mo stood there as though there was no one around. His eyes scanned the players inch by inch, and in the end, he frowned. Why wasn't he here? Chin Mo lowered his head and glanced at the WeChat message. His number was on it. Number 19. Chin Mo followed the number and saw that the seat in front of the computer was empty. Secretary Liang had been with his young master for a long time, so he quickly understood the meaning of his CEO's gaze. He turned his head and asked, where's the contestant sitting at machine number 19? As soon as this question came out, the testing room was silent for half a minute. The players looked at each other with an indescribably subtle expression. No one dared to speak. Instead, they secretly glanced in the direction of Manager Li. Manager Li himself was also stunned. After all, he never thought that Secretary Liang would ask about this kind of thing. He was still thinking of an excuse. Chin Mo stood there, his eyes narrowing dangerously. Chapter 72. Manager Li was still pretending. He let out a long sigh and said, what else could it be? Secretary Liang, you don't know. I don't know who recommended this contestant 19 for the in-house signing. He is so unethical and doesn't follow the test rules. I asked him to leave. Suddenly. No one knew why, but the air in the testing room seemed to have frozen because of someone. Secretary Liang raised his head and looked at his CEO. That extraordinarily handsome face was covered with an unprecedented coldness. His voice was also terrifyingly deep, and every word he uttered made people tremble from the bottom of their hearts. "You said you let him go?" "Yes, CEO Chin." Manager Lee laughed along. "That kind of prodigal is really nothing much. Luckily, you didn't meet him." Chin Mo suddenly laughed and walked towards him. He reached out and grabbed Manager Lee's collar. His eyes were so cold that they could freeze a person to death. "Who do you think you are? How dare you let the contestant go?" "Be President Chin, I. Manager Lee still wanted to explain. Feng Yi was even crazier than him. As soon as he heard his almighty's words, the one who left was definitely Spade Z. Spade Z, whom he had tried so hard to poach, had been driven away by this old Lee. He couldn't believe his ears. "Old Lee, why are you doing this?" Manager Lee knew that he could only pin his hopes on Vice President Feng. He hurriedly said, "I asked him to retest his hand speed, but he was unwilling. It was that prodigal who tore up the results sheet. He didn't want to come to our club." Chin Mo didn't believe him at all. He raised his hand and pointed, calling a contestant. "Tell me, what exactly happened?" The contestant didn't expect that his idol would call him. He immediately stood up and said excitedly, "Contestant 19 was the first to finish the hand speed test and fill out the form." Manager Lee humiliated him and said that he only knew how to show off. He told him not to be so full of himself and to take the test again. When number 19 heard this, he tore the form on the spot. He even said that as long as the club has someone like Manager Lee, he won't join Supreme Alliance. The contestant forced himself to finish his sentence because he realized that with every word he said, Almighty Chin's deep eyes would become colder. In the end, it was like a frozen pond. He looked as if he was going to kill someone. Feng Yi was listening from the side. He hadn't expected things to turn out this way. He looked up at Manager Lee, his hand trembling. I asked you to watch the test. Did I ask you to cause trouble for me?" Chin Mo didn't waste time with anyone. Instead, he grabbed Manager Lee's collar and pressed him in front of the computer. He was born in the third generation of the military and had never been gentle. At this moment, he displayed his ruthlessness to the extreme. Take a look at his hand speed. People like him have the right to be arrogant. That kind of Chin Mo was simply too terrifying. It lacked the nobility and indifference of the business world. His eyes were bloodthirsty and cold. Manager Lee's whole body was trembling. "Boss Chin, I didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't do it on purpose." Chapter 73. It's me. Chin Mo threw him to the ground after he finished speaking. Manager Lee was completely stunned by the two cold words. His eyes shook violently, his face pressed against the computer screen, and just like that, he slumped into his seat. Even after Chin Mo left, he didn't come back to his senses. His face was frighteningly pale. Because he knew that his future was over. He would be fired immediately without the CEO's order, and he wouldn't even be able to survive in Jiang City. Why? Why was that wastrel introduced by CEO Chin? At the same time, Fuzhou's hand speed was also displayed on the computers of all the contestants. Looking at that result, everyone who knew about games was stunned, and then there was an unbelievable uproar. More than 90%. At this moment, everyone was silent. Shock, and astonishment swept through the entire testing room. That kind of hand speed was something they couldn't achieve even if they practiced for a lifetime. Who on earth was this contestant 19? Everyone was asking, and everyone was curious. But his information had already been torn up and thrown into the dustbin. What a slap to the face. Chin Mo strode forward. That extremely cold back made Secretary Liang and Feng Yi pale with fear. Especially Feng Yi. He was in charge of this internal drawing. Who knew that his people would directly reject Spade Z, who was poached by the CEO? Not only would the CEO be angry, but he also wanted to kill that bastard Oldley right now. Secretary Liang didn't dare to remind their CEO about the afternoon dinner, so he shrunk his neck and pretended to be invisible. Suddenly, Qin Emo stopped, took out his phone, and pressed the screen with his fingertips. He tilted his handsome face slightly. "Where are you?" 3 simple words. Did it look like a WeChat message? Secretary Liang and Feng Yi looked at each other. The person who could make the CEO send a WeChat message at this time, that little devil, Spade Z. At this moment, Fu Jiu was still looking at the hot pot restaurant that the boy mentioned. She raised her eyebrows. "Is this the ordinary hot pot restaurant you mentioned?" It was the only Michelin-starred restaurant in the 3 northeastern provinces. Apart from being rich, one had to be powerful to eat there. Ordinary hot pot restaurant. There were less than 10 of them in the whole world. The boy laughed and scratched his head. What do you want to eat?" I'll ask them to get it for you." "Meat, I'm a pure meat eater." Fu Jiu didn't even look at the menu. She just sat there devilishly and smiled charmingly. "I didn't expect to pick up a rich second generation in a competition." The boy began to stutter again. No, I don't have any money. However, I can only treat you to hot pot. In the future, when I earn money, I'll treat you to something else." "So cute." Fu Jiu winked and smiled, exuding a seductive aura. Boom. The boy blushed again. Do you always talk like this?" "What?" Fu Jiu lowered her eyes and started to mix the sauce when she saw the soup being served. The boy pushed up his glasses. "Yes, it's been discharging electricity." "That's how handsome you are." Fu Jiu rested one hand on the back of the chair. Her silver hair and black eyes made her look devilish. The boy was stunned for a moment before he smiled. That's right. Wait, is your phone ringing?" "Phone?" Fu Jiu turned sideways and took out her phone from her pocket with one hand. Seeing that it was a WeChat message from Almighty Qin, she held a chopstick in her mouth and replied. Chapter 74. At the Qin Group Club. That slender figure that could gather all the dazzling lights had already walked in. Other than the contestants who wanted to see their Almighty Qin, even the media set up their cameras. All of this was proof of Qin Mo's popularity. He wasn't in the entertainment circle, but he was more famous than a superstar. Other than Qin Mo, no one else could achieve this effect. It was as if it was that kind of natural arrogance that made him so popular that when he appeared, people would cover their mouths and scream. However, Feng Yi and Secretary Liang, knew that their CEO was almost frozen to death. Especially when he looked at his phone screen. He didn't know what the other party had sent to CEO Qin, but his eyes turned completely cold. Fu Jiu didn't think there was anything wrong with her WeChat message. She sent a few more words over. "Are you hungry? If you are, come over together. The hot pot restaurant is not bad, and the little handsome guy is cute." This guy really needed to be taught a lesson. Qin Mo stood there with his fingers paused. He wanted to take a deep breath, but there were so many people here that he couldn't even take a deep breath. He said stiffly, "Address." Fu Jiu blinked. Why did Almighty Qin's tone sound a bit cold? Was he angry again? She didn't flirt with him, so why was he angry again? Fu Jiu sat at the dining table with her left hand supporting her chin. She was casually typing the address with the other hand. After Qin Mo saw it, he frowned and ordered Secretary Liang to get the car ready. Secretary Liang listened to the address. Wasn't this the place where CEO Qin had his business meeting tonight? CEO Chin, should we go there now? Was it too early? It wasn't even time for dinner yet. Chin Mo didn't say anything. He took the car keys from his hand and sat in the driver's seat. He didn't want to bring anyone along. Before Secretary Liang could ask anything else, he saw their CEO's slender fingers grip the steering wheel. His dark hair fell down and covered his deep eyes. With a beautiful drift, the limited edition sports car with smooth lines drove into the North Road with a whistling sound. The president didn't look like he was going to a restaurant. Instead, he looked like he was going to seek revenge. At this moment, Fu Jiu was still drinking her tea lazily. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to be shining as she looked at the boy very beautifully. A friend is coming over to eat with us later. He's also someone I know from the game. You don't mind, do you? No, I don't mind. The boy's stuttering problem was still there. I'll ask them to add another set of cutlery. We've chatted for so long, but I still don't know your name. Hearing that, Fu Jiu raised her hand and smiled. Fu Jiu. Good name. The boy probably thought about it for a long time before he could think of such a compliment. With a red face, he said, My real name is Feng Shang. In the game, it's called awarding you a slap of pleasure. Pooh. Even someone as cool as Fu Jiu couldn't help but spit at the name of the game. It wasn't only because the name of the player was funny, but also because the player's in-game name was indeed a famous person and hero. His maneuvers were awesome, and he had a lot of money. The only thing was that this guy was a chatterbox. Whenever he met a girl, he would say, Girl, want to play with Uncle? Uncle will play games with you and fly with you. Chapter 75. Feng Shang knew why Fu Jiu reacted this way. He scratched his cheeks in embarrassment, and even his ears were red. You probably think I'm different from how I am in the game. So, you'll get used to it. My brother gave me a lot of money to play, but he didn't give me any cash. So I can only eat hot pot in my own restaurant. You're the first person who won't laugh at me for stuttering. So, I really want to teach you, my friend. Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows, and her eyes flashed. Your brother is Feng Yi. After all, the surname Feng was rare in Jiang City. The well-behaved boy nodded and asked, What's your name in the game? So, we can play together in the game. So, you can take me to dungeons and fly me. Fu Jiu teased him with a smile. This was his famous saying. Hearing that, Feng Shang's face turned completely red. Fu Jiu didn't want to tease him too much. After all, he wasn't Almighty Qin, who could be cold in the face of everything. She thought for a moment, put down her chopsticks, and looked at Feng Shang. I didn't have time to tell you at the club, but I'm actually Spade Z. Feng Shang froze. Then, he pointed at her with his left hand and stuttered, how can you be Spade Z? My code name is Z. Fu Jiu said something that was unclear. Feng Shang didn't understand, but... Spade Z. He said he was Spade Z. The idol he wanted to see the most, Spade Z. Feng Shang didn't know what to say, so he looked up and said, Idol, let me calm down first. Fu Jiu laughed. You're not stuttering anymore. Feng Shang also realized that he spoke very fluently just now, but he was still shocked. Then, he seemed to think of something and said, that snobbish manager must be regretting it now. I saw you and young Master Qin playing together, and he dared to treat you like that. Young Master Qin will definitely make him pay. Don't talk about me. What about you? Why didn't you tell that manager that you are Manager Feng's younger brother? Fu Jiu curled up her lips slightly. That way, he wouldn't need to take the test to sign the contract. Feng Shang froze for a moment, then lowered his voice. I'm not suited to be a pro player. I stutter. No, I don't want to rely on my brother's connections to get in. I want to see my own true strength. If that's the case, are you interested in forming a team with me? Fu Jiu supported her chin with her fingers, looked up at Feng Shang, and said evilly, "Let those people have an eye-opener." Feng Shang was startled. Looking at the handsome face in front of him that could mesmerize countless girls, his eyes lit up. How can I widen their horizons? In 10 days, it'll be the official esports preliminaries. The Qin Corporation will also sign their official members here. When the time comes, we'll team up and kill them. What do you think? Fu Jiu put her hand on Feng Shang's shoulder in a very beautiful posture. Her fair skin was glowing, and the corner of her mouth had a unique ruthlessness. A strand of silver hair fell down and blocked her eyes, making it difficult to see her face. But even so, that kind of posture was enough to make people's blood boil. Okay. The well-behaved child held Fu Jiu's hand, looking like a hero who was about to make a pledge of blood. This was the scene Qin Emo saw when he walked in. Chapter 76. CEO Qin. The waiter looked at the man's face carefully, and his voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. Qin Emo looked at the two people in front of him. Their straight backs were like the pine trees in the mountains, making people feel cold. His eyes were narrowed dangerously, and they were as cold as an ancient deep pool. The waiter wanted to say something. But he saw that the noble man in front of him had already walked to the window and grabbed the silver-haired youngster's collar. Bang! Fu Jiu was caught off guard. She turned around, and her face was almost buried in Qin Mo's chest. The cool peppermint scent spread into her nose through the hardness of his suit. She didn't need to guess to know that almighty Qin was here. Only this man liked to grab her collar. Fu Jiu looked up and saw him looking down at her. His eyes were like a deep well, indifferent and noble beyond belief. Those claws of yours are for dungeons, not for flirting with men. Qin Mo pinched Fu Jiu's back, and his voice was sexy and bewitching. If I see you flirting with anyone again, I'll break your hands. That would save me some trouble. Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows. I'm not flirting. We are in the alliance. And almighty Qin, you care about me so much. Is it because? She smiled slowly as she said this. She leaned over and whispered in his ear slowly, "Are you jealous?" Every man's ear was untouchable. Even if Qin Mo was abstinent, he was still a normal man. What he couldn't tolerate was being blown on like this. Looking at that face that made one's teeth itch, the youngster's smooth and tender face with the scent of youth candy, it was a very likable face, but he wanted to pinch it to death every time. Fu Jiu smiled and moved closer. Did I guess it right? When she moved away from him, her face brushed past his, and her pale lips were about to touch his ear. Fu Jiu. Qin Mo pulled forcefully and threw her back onto the seat. His cold, thin lips were pressed into a straight line, and his fists were clenched tightly. His voice was icy cold. Stay away from me when you speak, I'm not gay. I won't be jealous of you. Sit down and enjoy your hot pot. Qin Mo was speechless when he heard Qin Mo's words, "You'd better stay away from me." Fu Jiu touched the bridge of her nose. Are you really angry? Did he go to find me after the meeting, only to find that I wasn't there, so he got angry? You can't blame me. That manager of yours is really too troublesome. With my bad temper, do you think I can tolerate it? The only reason I didn't beat him up was because he was on your turf. Does that mean I have to thank you? Qin Mo's voice turned colder. Feng Shang was dumbfounded. After all, he had seen young Master Qin a few times, but he had never seen him treat anyone like this. He didn't look like he really wanted to deal with his idol, but his eyes showed that he really wanted to break his idol's neck. But, what did his idol just do? He almost kissed young Master Qin's ear. Was he looking for death? As his idol's new comrade, he had to say something for his idol, or else young Master Qin would really ban his idol. Young Master Qin, this really isn't Jojo's fault. That managerly obviously didn't like him, so he told Jojo to get lost. Chapter 77. It was a nice word, but when Almighty Qin said it, it brought a chill that made people shiver from the bottom of their hearts. The air around them seemed to be frozen, and all the waiters didn't dare to look at him. Young Master Qin, who had power over 3 provinces, was really not someone to be messed with. They also hoped that second young master would shut up and stop talking, or even young Master Qin wouldn't be able to save second young master. Feng Shang did shut up, and his head was about to drop to the ground. Wasn't Jojo a good name? Why did young Master Qin's eyes look colder than before? Fu Zhou knew where the problem was. After all, if it were him, he would be in a bad mood when he found out that his friend was gone. In fact, Almighty Qin thought highly of her, or he wouldn't have gone to the club to find her right after the meeting. Almighty Qin could have sent his secretary, and he didn't have to go himself. Thinking of this, Fu Zhou put down her chopsticks, looked up at Qin Mo, and sighed. You didn't give me a letter of introduction, and that manager's words were too harsh, so I had to leave. Hearing the youngster's low voice, the coldness in Qin Mo's eyes gradually disappeared. He did forget to give this guy a letter of introduction, and he thought that nothing would go wrong with Feng year-round. Thinking of this, Qin Mo took another look at the youngster with his head down and chopsticks in his hands. He frowned, and an inexplicable sense of guilt rose in his heart. So let's not talk about the past. Sit down and eat hot pot. Fu Zhou reached out and grabbed Qin Mo's arm. With the Almighty here, the food would definitely be able to keep up, and they could order a few more plates of meat. Qin Mo didn't expect the youngster to suddenly do this, and before he could react, he was dragged to a chair by the youngster. Their shoulders were still touching, and the distance between them was so close that he could clearly see the fine hair on the youngster's white cheeks if he tilted his head. This kind of closeness made him a little uncomfortable. He frowned, sat up straight, and said in a low voice, "That manager, I've taken care of it for you. Come back to the Qin group with me after dinner. Almighty, we are brothers." Fu Zhou scooped up the tender beef without looking up. She had an evil smile on her face. I'm someone who cares about my reputation. Think about it, if you were humiliated like that, would you go back just like that? When Qin Mo heard the word humiliate, his fingers paused. He hadn't considered this point. When he saw the youngster pick up a piece of beef for him with his chopsticks, Qin Mo's beautiful brows furrowed even tighter. Since when did he become considerate of others? Was it because the youngster's expression was pleasing to the eye? Or was it because of the word friend? He didn't forget that he wanted to crush this guy to death just now. It also saved him the trouble of always doing things that challenged his patience. However, in the end, this matter was indeed a problem on his side. Feng Shang, who was on the side, was very restless. His eyes were only focused on young Master Qin's expression. He saw that young Master Qin was staring at Fu Zhou coldly, and his eyes even darkened. Could it be that he hated his idol so much that he was trying to blacklist him? No, he had to save his idol. The obedient Feng Shang took a deep breath and braced himself to speak again. Chapter 78. Hearing that, Feng Shang's back stiffened, and his stuttering voice became more anxious. Young Master Qin, don't tell my brother about this. He will use his connections for me if he knows. Seems like he doesn't know. Qin Mo wiped the corner of his mouth slowly. The smile on the corner of his mouth was like a knife being sliced into pieces. Feng Shang always blushed, and now he was so anxious that he wanted to explain clearly. Fu Jiu swallowed the beef and said, "Almighty, don't bully him. He's my teammate now. I'm not the only teammate you have." Qin Mo lifted the corner of his eyes and leaned back. He threw the car keys in his hand onto the table, which made a loud crackling sound. This. Fu Jiu paused, then suddenly laughed. She raised her left hand and put it on Qin Mo's shoulder, looking like a playboy. "Are you jealous? Don't worry, Almighty. There are only two of us in the game, and we are strong partners." Qin Mo curled up the corner of his mouth, twisted his hand away, and said coldly, "If you can't change your bad habit of hitting others, I will eat 20 plates of beef today." Eat again. She took a whole day to digest the 20 lobsters last time. Eating was a small matter, but the main thing was to pay the bill. Fu Jiu smiled and let go of his hand. "That's because we have a good relationship. Really, don't bully Feng Shang. Why are you so protective of him?" Qin Mo's eyes were a little low. Fu Jiu said frankly, "I want to take him to the esports competition next month. It's the only way to enter the team. I can take you there, but you don't want to go. You want to participate in the competition." Qin Mo looked up at the young man, reached out his finger, and flicked the tip of his nose. He smiled coldly. "Stay away from me, don't talk about the only way, and don't flirt with me all the time. Tell the truth, it's good for you." Fu Jiu laughed. "To be honest, after today's humiliation, I don't think it's my style to quietly enter the Qin group. If I don't do something big, I will lose face." "Lose face? I think you want to slap someone's face." Qin Mo lifted his lids and took out a cigarette. He held it between his lips and said faintly, "Did San make you angry again?" Fu Jiu narrowed her beautiful eyes. "I didn't expect the Almighty to use the adjective 3. However, I haven't seen San recently, but I bumped into San's son. Didn't I go to the computer city to buy equipment today? I saw a mouse model that you used before. He bullied me because I was poor and didn't have money, so he snatched my mouse. At that time, the manager of your club was also there. I think he didn't like me at that time, so he made things difficult for me during the test." It was clearly Lord Jiu who had tricked Fu Ziming, but in her mouth, it was Fu Ziming who had stolen her mouse. I have to say, when it comes to enemies, our Lord Jiu is so capricious and unprincipled. When Feng Shang heard this, he finally interrupted, I don't have money either. I can understand the feeling of being bullied." Fu Jiu high-fived him. The two of them were like brothers in hardship. Feng Shang comforted her, "Idle, I can give you my mouse. There's no need. Tonight, I'll clear a dungeon with the Almighty and earn some money." Fu Jiu said as she stuffed a mouthful of beef into her mouth. She was eating spicy pot, and her lips turned brighter. Chapter 79. After finishing the delicious hot pot, Fu Jiu wanted to say goodbye to Almighty Qin and go home to install her mini-game. Although she didn't have all the parts she bought, she could still assemble the interior. She didn't expect that Almighty Qin would ask her to stay. "I have a dinner here later. Come with me, and I'll send you home after eating." Fu Jiu was about to refuse. Almighty Qin said calmly, "I'll play the game with you after eating." Did he mean that if she didn't eat, she wouldn't play the game with him? But she had just finished the hot pot, and now, As if reading her mind, Qin Mo flicked the cigarette butt on his finger and continued, "I'll leave after a few sips of wine. You don't have to force it on me. Actually, I can still eat another plate of beef." Fu Jiu held her chin and smiled. "I'll keep you company." Qin Mo didn't say anything else, but Feng Xiang was watching from the side. He felt that young Master Qin's face had finally eased up since he came in. It wasn't good for Feng Xiang to stay here because he was worried that his brother would come and find out that he had secretly participated in the competition. Speaking of the competition, Feng Xiang still had a few questions to ask Fu Jiu. "Idol, who are the other 3 members of our team? Can you tell me their in-game names? I'll give them gold coins." Fu Jiu was very satisfied that she had hooked up with such a good teammate. "But, the current members of the team." Fu Jiu paused. Feng Xiang sat up straight and waited for Fu Jiu's next words with bright eyes. "Only you and me." Fu Jiu's hammer fell, and she was still as evil as before. "Are you proud to be a veteran member?" Even the well-behaved Feng Xiang couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he heard this. So they didn't even have a team. Why did he feel like he was cheated by his idol? "I'm here, aren't I?" Fu Jiu was about to pat Feng Xiang's shoulder. Suddenly, Almighty Qin raised his hand and blocked the guy's movement. His gaze deepened as he tapped the lighter on his fair wrist. "Your claws." Was he really going to take care of her? Fu Jiu pouted her pretty thin lips and retracted her hand disinterestedly. "Anyway, baby Xiang, don't worry. We won't have to worry about not having anyone to fight with." Feng Xiang thought about his idol's abilities in the game and relaxed a little. But who the hell was baby Xiang? Baby Xiang felt bitter in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud. Moreover, being recruited by his idol was indeed a blessing. Even if it wasn't on a large scale now, he believed that they would definitely become popular in the future. Furthermore, his idol had said that he would bring him along to fight for first place. If he really didn't have any teammates, he would use the game's gold coins to buy 3 to join the party. He had plenty of money in the game anyway. Thinking of this, Feng Xiang stood up reluctantly. Then I'll leave first, idol. I'll go home and change my equipment. After all, I have to follow my idol and conquer the world. You and young Master Qin, socialize first. All right. Fu Jiu lifted her lips, and her eyes reflected the light. It was very beautiful. Looking at his idol, Feng Xiang's handsome face started to turn red again. He thought about it and decided to give his idol some advice, so he secretly tugged at the corner of Fu Jiu's shirt. He didn't expect that his action would make that young Master Qin look at him. He just looked at him. His handsome godlike face was slightly tilted, and his phoenix eyes were half raised. His eyes were clearly curved into a faint smile, but they were cold and sinister. Chapter 80. Feng Xiang finally understood why his elder brother, a smart and capable person, was so timid in front of young Master Qin. He was clearly a manager, but he couldn't even control the Almighty under him. So, apart from the fact that young Master Qin was the CEO of the corporation, his gaze could really kill people. The obedient Feng Xiang shrunk his neck and swallowed back the warning he wanted to give his idol. Fu Jiu noticed that she was still tugging at her, so she turned around and looked at her. "What's wrong?" "No, nothing." Feng Xiang's stuttering couldn't be changed. Joe, I'll be leaving first." "Why, if you don't have anything else to do, you should go home early and log in. Don't provoke young Master Qin." It was a tiger. His idol was so smart, he should know this too, right? But the main thing was, judging from his idol's reaction just now, it didn't seem like he knew about this. Fu Jiu, on the other hand, was full. She looked a little like a careless cat. She waved her hand, looking as handsome as ever. You go first. I'll carry you in the game after I finish eating here. Okay, okay. Feng Shang blushed again. He really thought that his idol was good-looking. He didn't want to leave, but he couldn't resist the coldness emanating from Almighty Qin. After thinking for a while, he left the hot pot restaurant while looking back repeatedly. He was the one who asked out with his idol, but in the end, he was the one who had to leave. He wanted to go home with his idol and let his idol see the equipment he had bought in-game. Almighty Qin was robbing her of her love. Thinking of this, Baby Shang felt a little emotional, but he did not dare to say it. He secretly decided to hook up with more girls in the game today. After Feng Shang left, Qin Mo retracted his gaze. His voice was still calm. If you don't want Feng Yi to know that his brother is participating in the esports competition, stay away from him. It's the same in the game. Got it. Fu Jiu stretched her back and agreed, but she might not actually do it. The two of them sat on one side. Sunlight shone in from the outside and shone on the young man's clean and delicate side profile through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Qin Mo stood up with the car key in his hand and raised his eyebrows at Fu Jiu. Get up. Where are you going? Fu Jiu was confused. Didn't they say that there would be a dinner party later? Almighty Qin was still cold and aloof. No emotions could be seen on his face. There's still some time before the meal starts. Go and digest the food first. Is racing to aid digestion. Fu Jiu followed Almighty Qin down, and the first thing she saw was that top-end limited edition sports car with charming lines. It was painted in pure black, but the tires had a hint of red. This kind of car had great performance, and the starting price was estimated to be over 80. Like? Qin Mo watched as the youngster's eyes lit up. He pressed the unlock button. The receptionist immediately stepped forward and opened the door for him. Fu Jiu thought about it. Generally speaking, at this point in the novel, if she said that she liked it, the Almighty would definitely say that he would give it to her immediately. After all, those gold coins and diamonds from before, right? 999999, Almighty Qin gave it away with a wave of his hand. Therefore, Fu Jiu said seriously, I like it very much. Just like the lobsters, give me 20 of them, I won't complain. Chapter 81. Fu Jiu. Almighty, you don't follow the plot of a novel. It's hard, you know. Qin Mo looked at the young man's slightly depressed expression, and his thin lips curled up into a faint smile. He grabbed Fu Jiu by the back of her collar and shoved her into the passenger seat. When the car started to move, it was even cooler than it looked. Especially when there were two equally outstanding people sitting inside. Fu Jiu's silver hair was blown into a mess by the wind coming in from the car window, and she looked indescribably cool. Such a handsome face and luxurious style. When the beautiful car glided through the city center, people thought it was two superstars shooting a movie. That scene attracted many people to stop and take pictures while the sports car was waiting for the traffic light. However, Qin Mo's right hand was holding the steering wheel, and his noble and indifferent side profile was almost as fast as the car flashed by, stopping at the entrance of Computer City. Fu Jiu looked at that place and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Qin Mo stood there, tall and handsome. There weren't many people in the store, but everyone who entered the store was looking in Fu Jiu's direction. To be precise, they were all looking at Almighty Qin. After all, this wasn't the outside world, but a place frequented by people who liked to play games. Qin Mo was recognized by his potential fans as soon as he entered the store. It's Almighty Qin. Is he here to buy accessories too? I didn't expect to see Almighty Qin here. Most of the people who came to buy equipment were boys, and they weren't as crazy as girls. But because of Chin Mo's popularity, it still caused quite a stir. When the store manager heard that Almighty Chin was here, he immediately strode over, not daring to be negligent. After all, for businessmen like them, Chin Mo was not only an esports almighty, but also a young Master Chin who could shake the entire Jiang city with a stomp of his feet. The store manager's face was full of smiles. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Fu Jiu standing beside Chin Mo. The mouse-snatching incident happened not long ago. The store manager naturally had an impression of it, especially Fu Jiu's cool silver hair and handsome face. It was hard to forget. But he never expected that this young man would appear with Almighty Chin. The store manager's heart skipped a beat, and his voice shrank a little. Young Master Chin Mo glanced at the store manager, his tone cold and concise. Which mouse did he see in the afternoon? Take it out. There weren't many words, but the store manager cleared his throat with difficulty. Young Master Chin, we only have one mouse in the store. After it was taken away at noon, we're out of stock. I'll arrange for someone to get the goods, but I'll have to trouble young Master Chin to wait for a while. By the time the manager reached the end of his sentence, he didn't dare to look at Chin Mo's face anymore. Chin Mo's strong aura made him almost unable to lift his head. Chin Mo's voice was still calm. He pointed at Fu Jiu and said to the store manager, remember this face. In the future, give him whatever he wants. Yes. The store manager knew that Chairman Chin was here to get back at him. He was glad that he didn't go too far at noon. Otherwise, according to Chairman Chin's style, he wouldn't have let him off so easily. He would have destroyed his store. Chapter 82. Fu Jiu was actually a little surprised. She thought that the digestion the man was talking about was nothing more than racing and enjoying the wind. Now it seemed like. Fu Jiu looked up and smiled at Chin Mo. She didn't expect the Almighty to have such a good understanding of his friends. When Chin Mo turned his head, he saw the youngster looking at him. He arched a brow and tugged the back of his collar. Which one do you like? Pick one. Almighty, there's really no one who would like to be carried around by you like this. As Fu Jiu spoke, she adjusted her collar, still looking handsome and naughty. She turned sideways and said with an evil smile, if you touch me again, I will think that you are secretly in love with me. Chin Mo was no longer someone who would get angry over such words. He patted the back of the youngster's head and smiled coldly. Shut up and pick your stuff. It was the first time in Fu Jiu's life that someone had slapped the back of her head. She was caught off guard, and her handsome face was buried in her collar. Since he had brought her here to seek revenge, she couldn't fight back. She just thought that for this, she would have to cheat more from the man later. Almighty Chin didn't care about spending money. Seeing the young man cover the back of his head with one hand after he patted him, and with a face full of unwillingness, the corners of Almighty Chin's mouth subconsciously curved upwards, and his mood improved quite a bit. Fu Jiu could tell that Almighty Chin's hobby now was to bully her. To be honest, before she met Almighty Chin, she just thought this man wasn't easy to deal with. After interacting with him, she realized that this man was a black-hearted person. How could normal people find bullying their friends fun? Almighty Chin was the only one in the entire world. With Chin Mo's popularity, he couldn't stay in Computer City for long. Fu Jiu was also looking at the time. She quickly picked out a bunch of internal parts and a very small outer shell. When she said that she only wanted the shell, the store manager looked at her in surprise. Are you sure you want to buy it this way? What could these scattered things do? Why don't you just buy the finished product? Fu Jiu smiled. Yes. She had to get a better one so that she could type in class without worry. Chin Mo was sitting next to her with his long legs crossed. He was reading an esports magazine. When he heard this, he lifted his eyes towards Fujio. His eyes were as deep as an ancient lake. They looked calm, but there were many secrets hidden in them. Fujio also noticed that Chin-mo was looking at her. The man already knew that she was a hacker, so there was nothing to hide. She turned her head and smiled at him. I want to make my own laptop. Chin-mo raised his eyebrows and walked over. His slender fingers picked at the pile of spare parts. His businessman nature didn't change. The hard drive here won't do. I have one with me. I'll give it to you when you enter the Chin group. In other words, if she didn't enter the Chin group, she wouldn't even be able to think about it. Inexplicably, Fujio understood the hidden meaning in the Almighty's words. What about these things today? If you don't join the Chin group after the competition, you'll have to refund me the original price. As Chin-mo said this, he threw the bag of stuff into the young man's arms. He put one hand in his trouser pocket and smiled faintly. Seeing this, Fujio raised her eyebrows. What digestion? It was just a trick he came up with to enslave her better in the future. Chapter 83. Forget it, the Almighty wasn't just shameless for a day or two anyway. These pieces of hardware were really great. The main thing was that she had regained her pride. Fujio curled up her lips and took a step forward. She raised her hand and wanted to put it on the man's shoulder to tease him again. Unexpectedly, Chin-mo's reaction was surprisingly fast this time. Before she could put her hand on his shoulder, he grabbed her wrist and turned around to press her against the wall. His breath was cold. You don't want your claws anymore. Fujio was still smiling, and her eyes were shining. Almighty Chin, I realized that your ears are very fragile. There were a lot of group owners watching from the side, and everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but widen their eyes. Especially the store manager, who was watching from the side, was trembling. What the hell was going on? They had never heard of young Master Chin having this kind of taste, silver-haired handsome young man. Did the Chin family know about this? The geeks who were buying equipment were also watching, secretly swallowing their saliva. They really wanted to take pictures but didn't dare to. No one dared to mess with Almighty Chin's power. But that kind of posture really made people think the wrong way. Plus, both of their faces were ridiculously good-looking. Both of them seemed to be exuding hormones all the time, so it was inevitable that people would think in that direction. Fujio didn't think much of it, but it was really not good to be pressed against the wall like that. Looking at that handsome face right in front of her, her smile became wider, and she turned her head, seeing that the young man was going to blow at him again. Chin-mo used force again and pressed him back against the wall. The light in the bottom of his eyes released a charming color. Fujio. It was probably because the young man's face was too young and too small. He couldn't bear to do it, so he pinched him hard. But in order to teach the young man a lesson, Chin-mo still took action. He leaned over domineeringly, and his thin lips were close to the left ear with the black stud. His warm breath matched with his handsome and unruly side profile, giving people an indescribable feeling of ambiguity. But his voice was cold, and it was heavy on the ear, making people feel numb. Big brother, as an experienced person, let me tell you, don't blow at a man's ear casually in the future, understand? With that, Chin-mo straightened his back. He didn't understand how this guy could remain indifferent when he was flirting with someone. It was just that when he saw the porcelain jade white ear, the round and exquisite earlobe, he actually had an urge to play with it. She must have been angered by this fellow who flirted with her regardless of the situation. Even he was affected by it. However, a certain someone still had an evil smile on her face. She didn't seem to be shocked at all. Her beautiful eyes narrowed. Brother. Qin Mo arched a brow and adjusted his tie, looking very restrained. I'm older than you. If I don't call you brother, what should I call you? That was true. But if she took Almighty Qin as her brother, it would be a little stressful. After all, Almighty Qin looked like a profiteer from the beginning. If he tricked her again and made her sign a contract to sell herself or something, Fujiu raised her eyebrows. The loss outweighed the gain. Seeing that the youngster was still contemplating, Qin Mo was instantly infuriated. His voice turned cold. What? Is it wrong for you to call me big brother? Of course not. Fujiu curled her lips into a smile. But if Brother Mo is a brother complex, that would be even better. Chapter 84. 6:00 in the afternoon. Before there was a traffic jam. Fujiu and Qin Mo went back to that Michelin restaurant after buying the spare parts. Secretary Liang was already waiting there. He stood at the door in a well-ironed suit, looking at the time from time to time. It wasn't until he saw his CEO's smooth black sports car that he let out a sigh of relief. But the next moment, Secretary Liang's eyes widened. He actually saw someone in the passenger seat of CEO Qin. When Chairman Qin was driving, he rarely let anyone sit next to him. Who was that person? Secretary Liang took another step forward to take a closer look. But in the end, what surprised him was that he had actually seen that person before. Wasn't that the useless young master of the Fu family that CEO Qin met on his way to school? Secretary Liang couldn't be blamed for calling Fujiu like that. In fact, as the Fu family's business got bigger and bigger, Fujiu's reputation got worse and worse. It wasn't the first time that Secretary Liang had heard of Fujiu's name. In Jiang City, anyone from the upper class would sneer when they saw him. How many nightclubs had set him as a no customer? Especially those elegant places, people would simply shake their heads at the mention of his name. Plus, after what happened this time, it seemed like many people were waiting to see He Honghua and her useless son make a fool out of themselves. Although these weren't the main point, how could CEO be with such a person? Thinking about the few friends next to the president, almost all of them came from the military compound. They were either politicians or soldiers. Which one of them wasn't a famous person? But this one. Secretary Liang watched his CEO take the bag from the young man's hand and throw it into the back seat casually. He seemed to be saying, "I'll drive you back later, why are you still taking it?" or something along those lines. Secretary Liang thought that he was either asleep, or there was something wrong with his eyes or ears. CEO Qin. He called out to Qin Mo, but his eyes fell on the young man. As smart as Fujiu was, of course, she noticed that Secretary Liang was sizing her up. She didn't say anything and just smiled lightly. Her silver hair and black eyes carried a faint air of nobility. Secretary Liang was shocked. When he met young Master Fu in the past, he wasn't like this. Young Master Fu acted like a nouveau riche and didn't know how to restrain himself. Why did he look so elegant today? However, Secretary Liang was a man of action. He wouldn't say things that weren't meant to be said. Instead, he said to Qin Mo respectfully, "CEO Qin, Boss Li and Boss Zhang are already waiting inside." "Would your friend first, he's going up too," Qin Mo said faintly. Fujiu hooked up her lips at him. Secretary Liang watched as the two people walked into the restaurant side by side. He was shocked again. Even though this dinner party was set up by Boss Li and Boss Zhang to curry favor with their Boss Qin was not the only one. But, did this young Master Fu have the right to sit at such a table? It wasn't that Secretary Liang looked down on Fujiu, he just found it weird. Since when did their CEO become so close to that disgraced young master of the Fu family? This was the biggest contrast in the upper circle of Rivertown. Chapter 85. When Boss Lee and Boss Zhang saw a young Master Qin come in with a young man, they were shocked and stood up immediately. "Have a seat." Qin Mo's voice was still light, but it was very effective. He found a seat and let Fu Jiu sit next to him. He loosened his tie, and his side profile was handsome. "Have you ordered?" Boss Lee smiled. "Not yet, we are all waiting for you, young Master Qin." As he said this, he glanced at the waiter next to him. The waiter immediately brought up the menu. Secretary Liang took it and put it in front of Qin Mo. Then, he looked down at their CEO who was choosing 2 dishes with a scrutinizing look. Secretary Liang's eyes widened when he saw the word tripe. Their CEO never ate this kind of food, saying it was dirty and unhygienic. But today, and he even ordered peeing beef meatballs? Who said he didn't eat processed meat? Could it be that all these things were chosen according to that useless young Master Fu's taste? Secretary Liang was shocked by his own horrifying conclusion. No, it can't be like that. He must have been so shocked when he saw Fu Jiu get out of his CEO's car that he thought so much. How could the CEO see if this is enough? "If not, you can add more," Qin Mo said as he tilted his head and lit a cigarette. His nobility as the young master of Jiang City was undeniable. Secretary Liang could only feel his ears ringing. The CEO, he really chose according to the youngster's taste. Fu Jiu looked over, and her shoulder brushed against Qin Mo's. They looked at the same menu, and Fu Jiu smiled. "Add a lettuce." Hearing this, Qin Mo picked up a pencil and ticked it casually. When Boss Lee and Boss Zhang saw this, they felt that young Master Qin treated this young man differently. They looked at each other immediately and had a plan in mind. "Young Master Qin, this is..." Qin Mo held a cigarette and threw out 3 words with his nose straight. "My little brother." Little brother. When did young Master Qin have a little brother? He had never heard that the Qin family had other sons besides young Master Qin. Secretary Liang was still drinking tea, and he choked and coughed when he heard the words, "my little brother." "CEO Qin, did you ask boss and madam about this?" Qin Mo glanced at him faintly, slowly puffing out a smoke ring. "My brother." Hearing this, Boss Lee immediately replied, "Young Master Qin must have something special about him for young Master Qin to recognize him as his godbrother. How should I address this young master, and what does his family do?" "My surname is Fu." Fu Jiu picked up the teacup and smiled faintly. "I haven't been involved in the family business, but I'm planning to take it over." When Mr. Zhang heard the word Fu and looked at him, he suddenly thought of something. Could it be that the Fu family? "I saw your father at the business salon last time. Now, the Fu family's business is getting bigger and bigger. Not bad, not bad. I heard that young Master Fu is also good at games and has caught the eye of several teams. No wonder Chairman Qin took you as his godbrother. You are all young talents." Oh, I remember too. Not to be outdone, Boss Lee also tried to curry favor with him. "Speaking of which, young Master Fu is really different from your elder brother." That young Master Fu is really... When Secretary Liang heard this, he knew that Boss Lee had mistaken him for someone else, so he was about to stop him. Chapter 86. I really can't say. President Lee shook his head. His taste is far from second young Master Fu's. Even his mother came from the countryside. She is illiterate, but she still wanted to start a company. She didn't think about her own ability, and in the end, she was still tricked by your father. It's one thing to say that this son is a joke, but even his mother is the same. Isn't she just trying to make fun of others? Boss Zhang agreed. I heard that he has some special hobbies. No wonder Boss Fu removed his name from the Fu family. If I had a son like him, I would be very angry. Luckily, Boss Fu still has you, second young Master Fu. Secretary Liang listened to these two and felt that it was over. It was really over. Although their CEO didn't say anything from the beginning to the end, from the smile on his face and the way he flicked the ash off his cigarette, one could tell that he was exuding an endless coldness. Since CEO recognized young Master Fu as his younger brother, it meant that he was treating him as one of his own. CEO was always protective of his own people. Who knew what would happen next? Fujio supported her chin with her left hand, looking like a playboy. It seems that Boss Li and Boss Zhang have never seen that illegitimate son, or else they wouldn't have recognized him. What a pity, I am that young Master Fu with special hobbies. Instantly, Mr. Li's and Mr. Zhang's faces changed. The smile at the corner of his mouth stiffened. This was probably the most embarrassing situation they had ever faced in their business. Their faces were burning, and they wanted to find a crack in the ground to hide in. But CEO Qin was still sitting in front of them, and no one could tell whether he was happy or angry from his noble and handsome face. Did this mean that there was still room for negotiation? Thinking of this, Boss Li slapped his forehead. Look at my eyes, I really didn't recognize empty Tai. I will punish myself with a glass of wine, a glass of wine. I heard too much from others before, so I have a prejudice against young Master Fu. This wine must be drunk. Boss Zhang also raised his head and raised his glass. When the two of them drank the wine, they felt a little bitter. No matter how hard they racked their brains, they would never have imagined that young Master Qin would have any connections with a notorious nouveau riche. That was why he subconsciously treated Fu Jiu as the second son of the Fu family. Now, he had been slapped in the face. It was painful. However, Fu Jiu didn't plan on forgiving them. Her previous self was problematic, but He Honghua wasn't a joke. Lord Jiu definitely didn't want to be made fun of like this. Her eyes were cold, and she stood up with a half-smile. She said extremely coldly, Brother Mo, you guys eat first. Just like what these two CEOs said, I don't have good taste and self-restraint. I can't eat this meal or drink this glass of wine in front of people I don't like. Manager Li and Manager Zhang's hands that were about to raise their glasses stopped. They thought to themselves that this temper was giving him face. If it wasn't for young Master Qin, who would have toasted him? If he said that, not only would they lose face, but also young Master Qin's. Even if young Master Qin recognized him as his little brother, did he really treat him as his own? Young Master Qin would let him go wherever he wanted, even if they didn't do anything. Chapter 87. Hearing that, Boss Li and Boss Zhang were dumbfounded. They watched helplessly as young Master Qin stood up himself. He was wearing a well-ironed suit with a black jacket draped over his shoulders. He looked noble and condescending. The man was still holding Fu Jiu in his hand. He glanced at them, and the coldness in his eyes made their hearts tremble. Young Master Qin, about our business today. Boss Li still wanted them to stay. Qin Mo laughed viciously. Do you think I'll like someone my brother doesn't like? It was just one sentence, but it was enough to make the two of them feel fear. It was as if a freezing chill had drilled into their bones. Young Master Qin, this is all a misunderstanding, young Master Qin. The two of them desperately wanted to explain. They chased all the way from the restaurant to the outside, but they were blocked by the bodyguards in black. They couldn't take another step. The two of them were anxious. They licked their dry lips and looked at Secretary Liang, who was at the back. Secretary Liang, can you help us talk to young Master Qin, or young Master Fu? If he doesn't like us, we can change it. Secretary Liang pushed up his glasses and looked at his CEO's left hand that was holding the young man's wrist. He wondered when his CEO's misophobia was cured, but he still didn't forget to deal with the two in front of him. Boss Li and Boss Zhang, CEO Qin's eyes are sharper than anyone else's. He could tell from your attitudes when you were drinking just now. Let me give you a suggestion. Don't mess around with our CEO Qin anymore. He's protective. He even said something like, my brother. It seemed like the CEO was serious about protecting that young master of the Fu family. Fortunately, these two stood in front of him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to tell what the CEO meant. Secretary Liang decided that from now on, he would do whatever young Master Fu said. Pissing off young Master Fu was equivalent to pissing off their CEO. The consequences were unimaginable. Hearing Secretary Liang's words, Boss Li and Boss Zhang both froze on the spot. Their faces were ashen. The more they cursed in their hearts, the more they regretted it now. If they knew that young Master Qin cared so much about that young master of the Fu family, they wouldn't have looked down on him. Now, they were willing to drink a bottle of wine as an apology. But everyone in Jiang City knew young Master Qin's temper. He wouldn't give them a second chance. This business deal was over. Right now, they were praying that young Master Qin would quickly forget about them. Otherwise, their companies might not be able to continue operating. What did that useless young master of the Fu family do to make young Master Qin protect him like this? It was strange that the two of them knew each other. Young Master Qin really treated him like a little brother. If this news was released, the entire business circle would be shocked. In fact, Fu Jiu didn't expect that Qin Mo would go this far for her. She thought that calling him brother was just a form of address. What are you waiting for? Get in the car. Qin Mo opened the car door casually. His side profile was still handsome and charming. This time, Secretary Liang was driving, and both of them sat in the back seat. Fu Jiu caught Secretary Liang looking at her from the rearview mirror more than once. She winked at him with an evil smile. Secretary Liang's hand slipped, and the car almost went off course. Chapter 88. Many people know that I have only slept for 2 hours since yesterday morning. I have spent the rest of my time defending my rights. The act of the infringer is to make use of the school hunk's fans and infringe upon the school hunk's copyright without my authorization. According to the perpetrator, she was helping to set up a fan club, claiming that they want to be the support group I described in my article. Thank you, but I don't need your help. I'm the copyright owner of this book. The school hunks fan club has always been around, in Tencent bookstore and on official channels. The school hunk's official manager, Lu Bebe, Sister Turtle, who appeared in the novel, is the person I described in the novel, not someone you guys brought in by force. It felt like the characters in the book were about to cry from the humiliation. Don't cry. Daddy will make you look more handsome in the future. This incident could also be used as material to write about. After all, the little cuties in Tencent Bookstore's fan club were doing charity every day to make the school hunk better and better. You, on the other hand, are infringing on the original author's painstaking efforts and obstructing the development of the school hunk. There would be no harm without comparison. As for infringement, the law clearly states that a work of the same genre without the authorization of the original author is an infringement. Now the infringer is defending himself. They like the school hunk. They are genuine fans. Our genuine fans are self-righteous. Excuse me. It must be because I didn't sleep enough to hear such a dumb joke. My fans are the cutest fans in the world. They are young and sometimes deceived. I wanted to thank them in every way I could think of. It's not wrong to say that they're infringers, but they don't understand why we're defending our rights. The group of people replied with anger that came from the depths of their hearts. It came from protecting. No one would remain silent when they saw something they liked being destroyed. As a school grassland author, I called out to those who truly liked the school hunk. Reason complains. He only complained about the 4719555018 group. Don't get involved in anything else, and don't care about anything else. We only complain about 4719555018. You don't need to join the group to complain. You can just click on the top right corner to complain. When he saw some strange comments. For example, admin, you have to hold on. We love this book so much. You have to withstand the pressure and work hard. For example, if we like a book, we don't need to like the author. In such a situation, don't be angry. Hug my babies, don't be angry. It hurts to see you guys angry. As for those who are saying these things, I know that you don't really like this book, and you don't care that the creator's hard work is being lost, and you don't care that you're ruining the school hunk and stealing it. But in this world, there was a saying. Justice may be late, but it will never be absent. The original author could not be protected for the time being. The school hunk was temporarily unprotected. But that didn't mean they would never be protected. The infringers were clamoring for a lawyer's letter and a statement. Therefore, this statement must be posted here. In order to protect my rights, I will definitely reduce the number of updates. The like mentioned by the violator had already damaged the school hunk. If one day I break even more, he must be dealing with this infringement case. So be prepared, dear ones. It's a pity that I've spared these 2 days to prepare for writing. I really don't have the time to defend my rights. Infringement was the bottom line. If they couldn't handle it, they could only defend their rights. The infringers were too unsightly. Also, I would like to thank the beauty who has been helping me complain and defend my rights. I will start legal proceedings to defend my rights. The perpetrator probably didn't dare to reveal her real name. We'll find out, but it'll take time. So dear ones, give me some strength, let us get through this together. We're not white lotuses. We won't be like the infringers, saying that we're wronged and that it's not wrong. We will only defend our rights and protect the current school hunk. Chapter 89. His beautiful thin lips lowered his voice, with a deep warning, don't flirt with everyone you see. I was just saying hi to Secretary Liang. Fujio sat back lazily with one hand behind her back, looking very handsome. Chi Nemo thought about this guy's flirting skills and didn't believe him at all. He threw a book into his hands and said in a lukewarm voice, lower your head and read your magazine. Secretary Liang is an old man. What's so interesting about him? Secretary Liang, who was in the front, almost vomited blood when he heard this. He was not young, was he? But who did he piss off that CEO had to be so mean to him? Fujio flipped open the magazine, took a few glances, and lost interest. She turned her head and said to the man who was sitting so elegantly, do you have a magazine with beautiful men and cars? Let's have a look. Hearing this, Secretary Liang's heart jumped again. All of a sudden, he remembered something. This young Master Fu of the Fu family, he was gay. The CEO couldn't have been turned gay by him, right? No, that's impossible. Even if his young master didn't like women, he wouldn't like men either. But what if it was true? Wait a minute. How could he forget that CEO was in an online relationship, and there was a little vixen waiting for him in the game, sending him WeChat messages every day? So it was impossible for CEO to be gay. His imagination was really too rich. Ha ha ha. Just when Secretary Liang was about to heave a sigh of relief, he saw his CEO reach out and pinch the youngster's chin. His handsome face was also very close. That posture was like the posture before a kiss, breaking the distance he had been maintaining with people for many years. I don't care what your sexual orientation is, but when you join the team, you are not allowed to flirt with anyone. You'd better put away those weird things you read and only read that business magazine. If you don't shut up, I will throw you out. That tone was not threatening at all. Apart from the gloomy feeling of gnashing his teeth, it really sounded like he was disciplining his younger brother. But what did CEO say? Join the team. That meant that the little vixen CEO went to the club to find today was the loser young Master Fu. Was that so? No, he had to confirm it. He couldn't just make random guesses. How could the internet secret lover that the CEO couldn't forget be a man? Young Master Joe, how did you meet our president? To be honest, when I saw you just now, I was also shocked. Fu Jiu also thought this Secretary Liang was a good person. She held the magazine and said casually, I met him in the game. Today, I went to the Qin Corporation's internal competition. Brother Mo came to see me to see how I did. It really was that little vixen. Secretary Liang couldn't tell what he was feeling now. He looked straight ahead, his palms sweating. Just like that, Fu Jiu was sent home. When she got out of the car, she turned sideways to pick up the computer parts she had bought. Between her white top and black belt, her smooth and fair waist was exposed. It was a breathtaking curve. Chapter 90. The clothes she was wearing, weren't they short? Fu Jiu looked down at herself. Didn't other boys wear normal-sized tops like this? As for manliness, she, who was a woman at heart, had no need for it. Of course, she wouldn't say this out loud. She just replied casually, got it. Qin Mo looked at the young man's nonchalant look and raised his eyebrows. I'm going to play tennis tomorrow. You can come too. I have class tomorrow. Did Almighty Qin forget that she was still a student? Qin Mo's voice was very calm. I'll wait for you after class. My little brother can't look like this. Look like this. What does it look like? Fu Jiu laughed. She put her hand on Qin Mo's shoulder and approached him slowly. Brother Mo, do you dare to say that I'm not handsome? Qin Mo pushed the young man's hand away and pinched his chin. There was still a little bit of disdain in his eyes, and his tone was cold. You are at most pretty. Handsome S. Come exercise with me. Don't play games at home all the time. You're making yourself so tender. She was blaming her for her good skin. Fu Jiu realized that Almighty Qin really wanted to raise her as his little brother. If Almighty Qin found out that she was a girl, would he crush her to death? Fu Jiu glanced at the man guiltily. Actually, I have something to do tomorrow, Qin Mo laughed. He was a little black-bellied, and he was very domineering. Keep your excuses. I'll pick you up at the school gate after class tomorrow. Fu Jiu. She really couldn't slip away. Go in. Qin Mo tilted his head and lit a cigarette. He leaned against the sports car and raised his eyebrows at her. Fu Jiu curled her lips. Okay, Brother Mo, send me a WeChat message when you get home. Okay, Qin Mo replied and got in the car. He left first. Fu Jiu watched the black sports car disappear before she went into the house. It seemed like someone had been in the house. Things were thrown on the ground, and it was a mess. Fu Jiu's eyes turned cold, and she asked Chen Xiaodong, what's going on? The few remaining members of the company have been poached away. Now the company has become an empty shell. Madam is upset, so. Chen Xiaodong clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. They even mocked Madam for not having the slightest bit of ability, for not being able to bring out a decent team. Fu Jiu raised her hand and threw the things onto the sofa with a smack. She smiled coldly. Who else is coming? Liang Shiwang, Zhang Yingchao, and Nie Su. These three people are all on the rankings. When they first joined the company, their conditions weren't very good. Many places didn't want them. It was Madam who saw that they came from small places and couldn't bear to let them go back, so she spent a lot of effort to groom them. Now that they have fans and their skills have improved, they are stepping on Madam Ba. Young master, in fact, what hurt Madam the most was not that they had left, but that she had been betrayed by the person closest to her. Chen Xiaodong's eyes turned red at the end. After hearing this, Fu Jiu stopped going upstairs. She put on the jacket she had just taken off. Her silver hair was blown away by the wind, and her eyes were full of coldness. Wait a minute, where are you going? Chen Xiaodong followed behind. Chapter 91. After autumn, the weather became cold. It was indeed chilly to skateboard outside at this hour. When she entered the internet cafe, Fu Jiu straightened her jacket collar. This young man had been here when the machine broke last time, so the boss of the internet cafe had a good impression of Fu Jiu. Another half an hour this time. The boss had a cigarette in his mouth and was fiddling with something with his head down. You don't have to pay, it's open over there. Go play by yourself. Fu Jiu found the boss interesting the first time she met him, so she came to this internet cafe again. I'll play for a long time this time, until midnight. Give me a good machine. What are you doing? Playing games. The boss raised his eyes. His chin was quite handsome. Fu Jiu replied with a half-smile, but her eyes were cold. All right then. Number 19 in Zone A, what game will you be playing later? I heard that a good team is going to play Hero today. You can watch. Fu Jiu laughed. I'm watching this live broadcast. The boss didn't quite understand. He only felt that the young man's handsome face was especially cold today. The internet cafe wasn't small. Fu Jiu sat down along the queue, turned on the computer, and logged into the game. Then she glanced at the rankings. Using the code implantation, she located the positions of those three people. Liang Shiwang, Zhang Yingchao, and Nie Su. These three used their nicknames when they played games, but now that they were signed by a company, they used their real names to attract fans in the live broadcast in order to attract more fans. Fu Jiu glanced at the time on the computer. There was still half an hour before the live broadcast. That was enough time for her to break through the perimeter of the interview. Fu Jiu narrowed her eyes. Ta-ta, a pair of fair and slender hands danced on the white keyboard, and the rhythmic tapping sounded like a lively piece of music. This was what the boss of the internet cafe saw when he walked over with the lollipop the young man wanted. Good hand speed, but what are you doing? Fu Jiu quickly switched to the game page and curled up her thin lips. Nothing, doing some English homework. Homework on the computer. The boss found it interesting, so he chatted with Fu Jiu a bit more. So you play Hero too? There's a competition in the internet cafe, and if you win, you get a prize. Do you want to sign up? Fu Jiu unwrapped a lollipop and held it in her mouth. She smiled lazily. I'm not good at it. That's a pity. I think his hand speed is pretty good. The boss shook his head and walked away. In his heart, he was muttering, why does that English sound so weird? Could it be that he hadn't gone to school for so many years that he couldn't keep up with the times? Now that there was no one around, Fujio opened the code window again. Her silver hair moved slightly, and she coolly hacked into the platform room where she was going to broadcast. Just as she was about to move, her phone rang. It was a WeChat message from Almighty Chin. "Where are you?" "Internet cafe." Fujio didn't even think before she replied with 2 words. Chin Mo sat on the office chair and arched a brow. "I'm asking where your game is. I won't be farming today. I have something to do." Fujio typed very fast. Chin Mo's deep eyes dimmed. "Did someone offend you again? Is that why you went to the internet cafe to deal with them? Just like Director Zhang last time?" Fujio tilted her head and replied with a voice message, "Brother Mo, don't talk nonsense. I'm just looking for someone to play a game with." Chapter 92. Fujio looked at the increasing number of viewers on the live broadcast platform, and she smiled. It would be great if Brother Mo could come. Hearing the deep voice, Chin Mo knew something was up. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. He tapped on the keyboard and entered the game. Following the code the youngster gave him, he automatically came to a live broadcast platform. There were 3 youngsters on the screen, wearing the new team uniform, and they were being interviewed online. "I heard that the 3 of you just changed companies. How are the benefits this time? The fans are very concerned about the benefits you mentioned on Weibo." Liang Shuguang was the most handsome among them, so he was the one who mainly spoke. He wore headphones and sat in front of the computer. When the camera turned to him, he smiled and said, "The new company is more than 10 times better than the previous company that cheated people. Those who like us can rest assured. In the future, we will work hard to present a better condition for everyone. I've heard about the previous company, and it was really not that good." To increase the exposure, the host didn't end the topic. Liang Shuguang said yes, then shrugged his shoulders. "There's nothing we can do about it. The boss is from the countryside. He likes to yell and shout at people. I think the people in the team can't stand it, so they left. A boss who doesn't know how to respect others won't last long." The host closed the book and smiled. "But you guys have met a talent scout, and your future development will definitely get better and better." Liang Shuguang also smiled. "I think so too. Okay, let's stop talking. I'm sure the fans and friends are waiting anxiously." The host pretended to be excited and said, "My colleagues were just saying that the 3 of you are all masters on the rankings, and you are worshipped by many people. The previous company didn't know how to advertise, which delayed your development. Now, you can finally open our eyes. Now it's time for the Almighties to enter the game. Fans, if you have any questions, you can ask them on the live broadcast platform. Remember to send gifts." As soon as the host finished speaking, the live broadcast platform was flooded by one person. It was Fujio. She was wearing black headphones, and her silver hair was shining. "Since you are the Almighties, do you dare to accept a match on the spot? How could such a message come out?" This was not following the script at all. The host furrowed his brows and subconsciously turned to look at the director. However, the director gestured for her to continue the broadcast. What was even more strange was that he didn't know if there was a problem with the network. Their platform seemed to have been controlled by someone, and all the other fans couldn't say anything at this moment. Thus, the words that resembled a battle invitation dominated the entire screen like a cold mountain night. There was no one who didn't know what the words "webcast" meant. If he were to reject her now, he would be losing face before he even made his debut. And looking at that avatar, it seemed to be a newbie. What an arrogant fellow. Since he wanted to be beaten up, he would fulfill his wish. Chapter 93. Coach. Chin Mo was among the audience watching the live stream. With a cigarette between his slender fingers, he loosened his tie when he saw the two words. He sat on the high-end leather chair with his legs slightly crossed and a cold smile on his face. Someone at this level was qualified to coach his little brother. Thinking of the clean and elegant young man before, and then looking at Liang Shuguang, who had a smug look on his face, Chin Mo instantly felt that his little brother was many times better. It would be even better if he could change his flirting habit. Of course, Almighty Chin didn't realize that his current thinking was a typical brother-con. In the internet cafe, Fu Jiu was wearing her black headphones. She smiled evilly and replied with one word, "You." "Me?" Liang Shuguang laughed even louder. "My dear fan, I advise you to choose the other two. If I fight with you, your HP will be depleted very quickly." Fu Jiu held the lollipop in her mouth and sneered. "How would you know without fighting?" "What? You don't dare to take it." "My dear fan, I'm giving you a chance that won't be too embarrassing. Since you don't cherish this chance, come on." Liang Shuguang moved his fingers and entered the hero. Instantly, two game characters appeared on the screen, facing each other. Fu Jiu's account couldn't be any more new, but if Liang Shuguang had taken this match seriously and looked at her record, he wouldn't have been so full of himself. A new account had completed 29 first clears in a short period of 1 month. This kind of data would be top-notch in any club. But Liang Shuguang only saw that this player named Spade Z didn't even have any decent clothes on him. He only had an inconspicuous bronze sword on his back, and it was a gift from the grocery store after learning the skill. Liang Shuguang's disdain deepened. "Friend, your equipment is too lousy. Do you need me to let you have a few moves first?" "No need." After Fu Jiu typed, she spat out the lollipop in her mouth and skillfully picked a chocolate-flavored one into her mouth. She tilted her head and smiled. Do professional players talk so much during a match? Liang Shuguang narrowed his eyes. Was she shameless? Ha, in that case, let's begin. Liang Shuguang's sneer could be seen by everyone watching the live broadcast. Zhang Yingchao and Nie Su encouraged him. "Shuguang, he's just an amateur. Just teach him a little, don't take it too seriously." "Alright, give me a minute. Once everyone's settled down, we'll livestream the dungeon." Liang Shuguang confidently put on his headphones and placed his fingers on the keyboard, waiting for the game's 3-second countdown. He wanted to stun his opponent first and then use a few moves to destroy him. This way, it would be more interesting to watch on the live broadcast. However, what he did not expect was that just as he moved his index finger, before he could even use his proudest gaming skill, he saw a flash of light across the computer screen. His HP bar dropped at lightning speed. He did not even see his opponent's movement clearly before he fell heavily to the ground in a spray of blood. In the internet cafe, Fu Jiu was waving her mouse and typing on the keyboard. Her movements were beautiful, and she didn't even give her opponent a chance to revive. She used another big move. Chapter 94. Lost? He actually lost in front of his fans. Liang Sudong's frozen expression was transmitted to every corner of the country through the live broadcast. How long had it been? 10 seconds. 20 seconds. Definitely less than half a minute. And the result? Liang Shuguang, who was yelling about teaching someone a lesson, was killed in seconds as soon as the game started. Everyone who was watching the live broadcast was shocked. Many players in the internet cafes even stopped playing games and stood up to watch the big screen in the internet cafes. They were crazily scrolling through the screen, and that fiery scene couldn't be controlled at all. Who the hell is this guy? He's so handsome, so handsome. Wait a minute, I think I can leave a message. Quick, ask who he is. Is he from some professional league? Absolutely not. Why do I feel like his game name is a bit familiar? F***CK. I remember, Spade Z. He's the Spade Z who swept the first clears in Zone C. Why do I feel like Spade Z hid his achievements on purpose? You don't say. I feel the same way, ha 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 ha. My big Spade is so two-faced. What new king of professional league? He's so weak in front of me, the great Spade. He just said that he would let his opponent win, but he didn't even use any skills. What an embarrassing slap to the face. The boss of the internet cafes couldn't compare with these youngsters. Although he liked playing games, he wasn't that crazy about idols. When he walked over with the Coke that the customer ordered, he accidentally looked at the silver-haired young man's computer and was stunned. The young man who said that he wasn't good at playing hero had pure black headphones on his head and a lollipop in his mouth. His side profile was so handsome that he looked like he walked out of a comic book. He was in a one-on-one battle with someone in the arena. With a shake of the mouse, the intense and beautiful operation stopped abruptly, and the whole screen was filled with the silver victory sign. He didn't look like someone who didn't know how to play at all. Instead, he looked like a master among masters. The boss walked over and wanted to take a closer look. But after he saw the game character on the screen clearly, his eyes shook violently. Spade. Spade Z. Fujio looked like she had just gotten out of a fight. She looked back fiercely with a lollipop in her mouth. She put her slender fingers on her lips and made a shushing gesture with an evil smile. The boss was really shocked. He looked at the young man's androgynous face, and then looked at the 200-inch LCD screen hanging on the wall of his internet cafe, which was still playing the live broadcast. The excited voice echoed throughout the internet cafe. Every gamer deeply worshipped Spade Z at this moment. That beautiful and arrogant movement, that explosive strike, that elegant move that struck the enemy in an inch of space. But this godly player, who had been repeatedly picked by professional teams, was actually sitting in his internet cafe and playing games. What's more, he was using a machine that cost 5 yuan per hour. He had always been treated as a high school kid who only knew how to play single-player games. Who would have thought? Excitement, astonishment, and vexation filled his chest. In the end, the boss couldn't take it anymore. He clutched his chest and said, "I'm going to have a cup of cold water to calm myself down." Chapter 95. The arrogant sentence dominated the entire screen. The live broadcast platform was almost flooded by the players. They were fascinated by Spade Z's strength. He could kill you without any equipment. Liang Sudong's already pale face was stained with a layer of heavy anger after seeing this sentence. His fingers held the mouse tightly. If it wasn't for the fact that he was still doing a live broadcast, he would have already started cursing. This guy was obviously here to make things difficult for him, and he even hid the victory. He did it on purpose. The host also saw the suspicion in this and quickly spoke up for Liang Sudong. Even the network speed was affected during the live broadcast. Instead, the audience who came to challenge benefited from it. Although this result is a bit unexpected, it's not difficult to see the character of our almighty Xu Guang. He is very considerate of the fans and even gave up the victory. Shouldn't such a player get more love from you? Just from the host's words, it was obvious that she didn't understand games at all. In that match just now, there was no problem with the network speed, and it wasn't because Liang Sudong gave up the victory. It was because he was crushed from the beginning to the end without any power to fight back. The people watching the live broadcast were the real players. As soon as the host finished speaking, a series of words appeared on the platform. How can the host say that he gave up in such an obvious situation? Where's her professional ethics? Shameless. Did the host take someone's money? I don't want to watch this platform anymore. What professional player? If he lost, he lost. Why does the host have to speak up for him? The host saw that the bombardment was aimed at her and gestured to the director. But this time, the director's reaction was completely different. Through the glass, a large poster was erected. Interview that Spade Z. Hurry up. Such a heated discussion, it must not stop. The host had indeed taken money from the mistress of the Fu family. Now that she was being treated like this, she felt uncomfortable. Who knows if he found someone to play for him or if he used a cheat. Liang Shiguang said coldly, "You know we are doing a live broadcast, but you still came to challenge us. Do you want to be famous? Good publicity." The host pretended to be surprised. A plug-in. That makes sense. I've heard of this Spade Z before. I heard that he swept Zone C as soon as he came out, and he used a new account. Logically speaking, it's impossible for him to complete the first kill mission. There's a high chance that he used external software. Qin Mo had just poured himself a glass of red wine. Before he could sit down with the cork in his hand, he saw this conversation. His deep eyes gradually turned cold. He could take care of his younger brother. Since when was it someone else's turn to interrupt? Moreover, he knew that Guy's hand speed better than anyone else. Cheat code. Who was he trying to humiliate? Did he think his brother was the same as these idiots? Qin Mo raised his head and took a sip of red wine. He freed one hand and leaned over, typing a few words on the keyboard. Since you guys are so doubtful, have a round with me. I won't bring any equipment either. Such a cold sentence was sent out. All of a sudden, the live broadcast screen was stuck for a few tenths of a second. Even Fu Jiu felt that moment of pause. She had clearly released her authority, but at that moment, no one spoke. It was as if the whole world had fallen silent. Right after that. Chapter 96. Almighty, Almighty Qin. It's really Almighty Qin. Almighty Qin's letter of challenge. Holy **T. This is not a dream. I can watch Almighty Qin play live again. I want to see his hands. The internet cafe where Fu Jiu was also affected. The players watching the big screen were all petrified the moment Qin Mo appeared. Then, they all screamed excitedly. The whole internet cafe was bustling as if it was New Year's Eve. Except for Fu Jiu, who was still sitting in front of her computer, all the other computers were empty. Everyone was looking at the TV screen with shining eyes, yelling for the boss to turn up the volume. Qin Mo, Qin Mo, Qin Mo. Just looking at those two words was enough to make one's blood boil. Except for the annual All Stars live broadcast, Almighty Qin would appear on the live broadcast platform. Today. He actually came. The audience were just onlookers after all, and the one who was really scared was Liang Shiguang. Almighty Qin sent that sentence for him to see. How could his skills be better than Almighty Qin's? He might even die more miserably than before. The host was also shocked when she saw the name of the game, and then women's thoughts started to run wild. She didn't play games, but in Jiang City, there was no woman who didn't want to be close to young Master Qin. The host was lost in thought, thinking about how to talk to young Master Qin later. Finally, the director backstage couldn't help it anymore. He walked over, pulled the host back, and raised the microphone. I think the audience is in the same mood as me. You all want Almighty Qin to make a move, right? The director said what everyone was thinking. Now, they didn't care about Liang Shiguang anymore. They just hoped that Almighty Qin would turn on the camera. The number of views on the live broadcast platform instantly reached 10 million, and many media outlets started to enter. The agents of other clubs even called the players at this time. Go on the live broadcast. Chin Mo wants to PK. You guys watch. Rather than asking them to watch, it was better to ask them to learn. Almighty Chin never PK unless he led his team to fight in a competition. This was a rare opportunity in 100 years. At the same time, Feng Yi, who was still talking about his next sponsorship, received the news. He put down his glass and looked at the CEO of his partner seriously. Do you have XX live broadcast software on your phone? Almighty, young Master Chin, my ancestor, do you know how much your endorsement fee is? He just casually appeared on the live streaming platform. Secretary Liang didn't dare to look at his CEO's face anymore. To be honest, who would go on a live broadcast to pick a fight over a younger brother? Young Master Chin was definitely the first in history. He was too protective. No, he couldn't let his imagination run wild. The CEO is straight. It was just that he grew up alone. Now that he had a younger brother, he more or less had the tendency of a younger brother complex. That's right, it's a sibling complex. Chin Mo didn't care about the impact he had caused. He had always been known for being domineering and aloof. He just raised his eyebrows and typed 5 words. Are you going to fight or not? There wasn't even a punctuation mark, and his tone was so cold that it could freeze people to death. Liang Shuguang sat in front of the computer. Even though the heat in the broadcasting room was turned on, he still couldn't help but tremble. Meeting Almighty Chin as soon as he debuted would only cause him to be one-sidedly destroyed. At that time, people would only remember his cowardly appearance, and no one would like him anymore. Chapter 97. Liang Shuguang desperately wanted to retreat, but the director pressed his shoulder hard. Of course, Shuguang, it's your honor to have Almighty Chin guiding you. What honor? How could it be an honor? If he really fought with Almighty Chin, he would never be able to get rid of the word ugly in his career. Director Li, Liang Shuguang still wanted to say something. But the director cut him off and whispered in his ear, if you don't fight this time, don't ever think about fighting again. The intention of the threat was obvious. The platform looked at the traffic benefits. If he didn't fight and Almighty Chin didn't make a move, how could the rating soar? What? Do you really think you're a god? Your boss didn't poach you to make you lose money. Continue broadcasting, and you'll be rewarded later. Liang Shuguang finally understood that after entering the new company, he could no longer do whatever he wanted like before. In the eyes of the new boss, players like them were just chess pieces. These people wouldn't consider his future, they only cared about the benefits in front of them. Liang Shuguang sat back down with a defeated face. After logging into the game, he saw the godlike character in front of him. He clenched his teeth and wanted to make his last resistance. However, Almighty Chin's attack wasn't as fierce as Spade Z's. Instead, he froze his body so that he couldn't even move. He let him bleed bit by bit. Liang Shuguang thought that it would only take him a few seconds to lose face. But Almighty Chin seemed to be playing with him, making him embarrassed for 3 whole minutes. In these 3 minutes, he was as ugly as he could get. The laughter coming from the screen was so piercing. In the end, Liang Shuguang couldn't take it anymore. He took off his headphones and threw them on the table. This way of dying was even more pathetic than before. After all, the Chin family was a warlord. No matter how handsome and elegant Chin Mo was, he was ruthless in his attacks. After killing him, CEO Chin typed a line of words with a calm expression. Look at how slow my movements are. Do I look like I'm using a cheat? That was a slap in the face. Liang Shuguang's expression froze, and he had to smile along with the director. Many of Almighty Qin's fans heard their idol's words. Don't play if you don't know how to play. You accuse others of cheating when you get insta-killed. Do you think such a player is fit to be a professional player? He's indeed unworthy. This time, it was someone from another team who spoke up. The name of the great god was clearly hanging there. From this, it could be seen how many pro players were online on the streaming platform. The preview traffic had reached an unprecedented peak. The broadcasting director asked someone to switch the picture to the screen, and the excitement in his eyes was so obvious. Liang Shuguang felt extremely embarrassed and wanted to get up and leave. What he didn't expect was that this wasn't the end. A clear and mischievous voice came through the microphone, with the unique chuckle of a teenager. What? You want to leave? Liang Shuguang, do you think that I will let you go at this point? What did you say just now? You came from the countryside and like to be noisy, right? When you said this, you seemed to have forgotten that you also came from the countryside. Back then, you were so poor that you could only eat instant noodles in the internet cafe. It was the boss that you looked down on the most who recruited you into the company. He took care of your food and accommodation. When you didn't have any talent, he treated you well. Chapter 98. As soon as Fu Jiu said that, the live broadcast platform went into an uproar immediately. Even the staff next to him looked at Liang Shuguang in surprise. It seemed that no one expected the inside story to be like this. Liang Shuguang didn't have the face to look at the camera anymore. He tried his best to cover his face with his hands. However, Fu Jiu's voice didn't stop. She just sat in the noisy crowd with her legs slightly crossed, like a king in control of the whole scene. Under her silver hair was a thin half-smile. While everyone was staring at the big screen and watching the live broadcast, no one knew that in the corner of the internet cafe, a handsome young man wearing black headphones was moving his hands and playing with the whole world. Now you know how to be embarrassed. Didn't you just laugh at He Honghua's company for not being good at training people? Liang Shuguang, Zhang Yingchao, and Nie Su, I can tell you now that I am a player under He Corporation. How can it be enough to beat you up just once? Go back and tell your boss that I will slap all her students' faces until they are swollen in the selection contest. As Fu Jiu's voice fell, the live broadcast platform's traffic broke 100 million. It turned out that this wasn't a PK between ordinary fans, but a declaration of war between two teams. The media smelled the scent of gossip, and they swarmed in like a tide. Countless people on the screen asked, which company is He Corporation? Some people were shocked, because anyone who had heard of He Corporation knew that it was a company that was about to go bankrupt. Spade Z, who swept Zone C as soon as he debuted, won 29 matches, and defeated a professional player in just 18 seconds, turned out to be a signed student of this company. They thought a lot about Spade Z's background, but no one expected that this mysterious master actually came from this company. That night, He Honghua's phone exploded with calls from investors. She didn't know what was going on, but she heard the people on the other end shouting fiercely, "Boss He, why didn't you tell me earlier that our company had such a player? Spade Z. If you had told me earlier, would I have withdrawn my investment? I will tear up the contract, and we will continue to work together. This time, I will invest another 500,000, okay?" He Honghua looked at her phone in a daze. She still couldn't believe that the investors who had been forcing her to pay back the money wanted to increase their investment, and they even called her boss He. This was even rarer than a pie falling from the sky. He Honghua's first reaction was that he must be a swindler. How could there be such a good thing in the world? He must be thinking of a way to take away the last bit of money she had left. But the first call was fine. Then, she received a total of 8 phone calls. 5 of them were from investors, and the other 3 were from the most famous local media in Jiang City. They wanted to interview their company's player, whose game name was Spade Z. She had heard of this Spade Z, the almighty who swept through Zone C. But their company didn't have a player named Spade Z. The media even asked her to send a photo to them so that it would be good for their publicity. The key was that she really didn't have such a person on her side. He Honghua was confused. Chapter 99. He Honghua didn't know how to read, let alone how to open the link. In the end, Chen Xiaodong came over, and the 2 of them looked at the computer together. They took the video and watched it from beginning to end. When Chen Xiaodong heard the last part, he couldn't even sit still anymore. He stood up and yelled, "That was so F***ing satisfying. Madam, now the whole country knows what kind of people these 3 are, and no one will support them in the future. They deserve to terminate the contract with us." Spade Z. He Honghua vaguely felt that the voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it before. Why did he help me? Chen Xiaodong laughed. He must have helped you because he saw injustice. Madam, you don't know that these online masters love to turn things around. But we don't have such a person in our company. How am I going to explain when the media calls? He Honghua was a boss after all, so she had to think more than others. Chen Xiaodong was also troubled. In fact, he didn't understand why Spade Z still said that he was from their company when everything was over. If their company had such a god, Madam wouldn't have to worry to this extent. Just as he was thinking about this, the door was pushed open. The young man had a skateboard under his left arm, and his right hand was fiddling with his wet hair. His whole body was covered with the smell of rain, and his handsome face was revealed. Mom, why did you come back so early today? He Honghua was happy to see her daughter now. She held Fu Zhou's hand and said, "Zhou, our company is saved." Oh. Fu Zhou already knew what was going on. She wouldn't make a move if it wasn't for her own benefit. She only curled up her thin lips and smiled evilly. Did those investors call you to increase their stakes? He Honghua was happy, and her voice became louder. Not only the investors, even the media called to promote our company. Wait, how did you know that the investors wanted to increase their stakes? Of course I'll pay attention to Mom. Fu Zhou freed one hand to grab He Honghua's huge waist and brought her to the sofa. Hearing this, He Honghua was so touched that she didn't think about the whole thing. Her rough hands couldn't bear to let go of her daughter. Zhou, when Mom makes money this time, I'll hand over the company to you. Those things aren't hard to do. Don't worry, Mom will watch you from the side and won't let others laugh at you. With Mom here, of course I'm not worried. Fu Zhou chuckled and put her arm around the old lady's shoulder. Let's talk about the media first. How are they going to promote the company? He Honghua didn't realize that her daughter was trying to get information out of her. She tugged at her curly hair in annoyance. They said they wanted to interview a gaming god called Spade Z, but we don't have such a person in our company. We can't just make someone appear out of thin air. Fu Zhou smiled, looking a little flirtatious. Mom is right. You didn't let it get to your head. The unexpected compliment made He Honghua blush. How could their daughter be so handsome? Chapter 100. He Honghua's eyes lit up when she heard that. Zhou, how did you come up with this gimmick? Our company can make a lot of money this way. Fu Zhou didn't say anything and just smiled faintly. Soon, He Honghua thought of something and frowned again. But we don't have Spade Z in our company. We can't lie to people like this, right? Mom, how can this be a lie? Fu Jiu patted He Honghua's shoulder and said in a low voice, I watched the live broadcast today. Since Spade Z said that he belongs to our company, then he will definitely appear in the gaming contest. Otherwise, his reputation will be ruined. So don't worry about this. He will definitely appear, and you can deal with the media boldly. When He Honghua heard her daughter's suggestion, she skipped over to return the call to her friend from the media. Chen Xiaodong looked at his young master's electrifying eyes and said seriously, Young master, why do I feel that you were intentionally flirting with madam? What are you trying to hide? Xiaodong. Fu Jiu stretched out her arm and put it on her little boy servant's shoulder. Haven't you realized this after watching so many movies? The more you know, the faster you die. I've been playing games all night, and I'm tired. Go make me a sandwich and pour me a glass of wine, and I'll consider not killing you. Chen Xiaodong's hair stood up when his young master put him on the shoulder. I'll go now. Young master, don't try to turn me gay. Turn him gay. Fu Jiu raised her pretty eyebrows and thought that even if she wanted to turn him gay, she would find Almighty Qin. Why would she find a little kid? Fu Jiu blew the hair on her forehead and took out her phone that was vibrating. It was a WeChat message from Qin Mo. A few short words with the same cold tone, it's raining outside. Don't hang out at the internet cafe if you have nothing to do. Fu Jiu wiped her hair with a towel and looked at He Honghua, who was on the phone. If her mother knew that she had found such a godson for her, how would she react? Brother Mo, I'm home. After saying that, in order to prove that she wasn't lying, Fu Jiu took a selfie and sent it over. Qin Mo looked at the youngster's face, which was still dripping with water. It was unbelievably tender, as though even the hair on her face was sticking to it. Her beautiful and exquisite collarbone was revealed. Qin Mo's fingers paused. He placed his phone down and stared at the traffic outside the floor-to-ceiling window. After a few seconds of silence, he picked up the phone again. His tone was firm and commanding. I told you, don't send me such pictures again. Go to sleep now, I'll pick you up from school tomorrow. Fu Jiu was confused again. What was wrong with her picture? Isn't it quite clear? No one could guess the Almighty's thoughts. However, there was one thing that had to be put on the agenda. Since she had already announced that she was going to make San suffer in the esports competition, she had to recruit enough people. Fu Jiu rested her chin on her fingers and suddenly smiled. Let's go to the game during class tomorrow. We can use the parts that the Almighty bought tonight. When He Honghua came back from the phone call, her daughter was gone. Only the red wine was gone, and Chen Xiaodong's sandwich was still in the same place. Where's Joe? She asked. Chapter 101. The next day, Fu Jiu yawned and went to school. She spent the whole night assembling her laptop, and her shoulders were almost broken. This time, she didn't skateboard. She took the bus, and it was 2 stops away. Along the way, she saw many girls in the same school uniform taking pictures of her. Fu Jiu smiled at them with a lollipop in her mouth. When someone leaned over, she held the girl's hand like a gentleman. When she got off the bus, all the girls blushed and followed Fu Jiu excitedly. Only when the young man entered the classroom did they let out a long sigh of regret. However, the classroom wasn't as pleasant. As soon as Fu Jiu stepped in, she saw a mess on the floor. Shui Yaoyao was squatting on the floor. Her long hair hung down and covered her face, but it wasn't hard to see how depressed she was. Even when her fingers touched the textbook, she slightly tightened her grip. Damn fatty, you should know your place when you're so ugly. Stay away from me. The boy said as he kicked the book in Shui Yaoyao's hand. Still picking it up. Let me tell you, I've been tolerating you, fat pig, for long enough. If you still want to stay in class, go tell the homeroom teacher and ask him to change your desk. What the hell is this? Poor and ugly, it's an insult to my eyes. Shui Yao Yao's fingers tightened again, and the force almost sank into her palm. Fu Jiu knew that she was holding it in because she couldn't cry. Once she cried, she would lose completely. A group of people were watching the show, especially some girls who were covering their faint smiles, and their picky eyes swept over Shui Yao Yao's body again and again. You're right. If she's expelled from school, she shouldn't come back. Although she was wrongly accused of being a thief, it's true that her family is poor. Also, the weather is cold, and she doesn't change her clothes. She only has one set of school uniform, and she doesn't even wash it. Her long hair smells like vegetables. Does she not even take a shower? Ah! Stop talking, it's disgusting. Mocking laughter was always more painful than punches. Shui Yao Yao's head hung even lower, almost to the point where it was buried in the ground. The boy standing next to her wanted to kick again, but he was kicked to the side. There was a loud bang. Before the boy could cry out in pain, Fu Jiu reached out and pulled Shui Yao Yao into her arms. She held the back of Shui Yao Yao's head with her left hand and pressed it into her own chest. She grabbed his uniform with her right hand and smiled evilly. A man who hits a woman is worse than a piece of trash. You can either shut up now, or come with me to the sports field at the back. Let's see whose fist is harder. Fu Jiu's kick just now had already made him unable to stand, and with the way this person was looking at him, the boy only felt goosebumps all over his body, and he took a step back submissively. Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows and let go of his collar. She turned sideways and hooked her black school bag back. Her school uniform was half unbuttoned, and she said faintly, "You don't want to be next to Shui Yao Yao, do you?" The boy opened his mouth with a pale face. Who would like to be next to such a woman? He didn't dare to call her fat pig anymore. He was afraid that Fu Jiu would kick him to death again. Why didn't he realize that this gay was so fierce when he fought? Chapter 102. Everyone in the classroom was shocked when they saw Fu Jiu hugging Shui Yao Yao. Some of the girls had their eyes wide open as they looked at this scene in disbelief. Shui Yao Yao herself froze from the beginning. She wanted to say thank you, but she was afraid that if she opened her mouth, she wouldn't be able to stop crying. But Fu Jiu acted like nothing had happened. She sat down on the chair, put her left hand on Shui Yao Yao's back casually, and smiled lightly. The buns from last time were delicious. Do you have any more today? Shui Yao Yao didn't say anything. She nodded and shook her head. She looked down, and big drops of tears fell onto the textbook one after another. She didn't understand why she didn't cry when she was bullied like that. But the youngster's most ordinary greeting could make her cry uncontrollably. Shui Yao Yao thought that maybe the hug just now was too warm, so warm that she could turn a blind eye to the humiliation. No more. Fu Jiu touched her belly regretfully. Then she moved her left hand, and a lollipop appeared in front of Shui Yao Yao. She had a smile on her face. Take it, girls need to eat sweets. The surrounding students looked at the interaction between the two with envy and jealousy. The prettiest girl in the class couldn't figure out what was so good about that fat pig that Fu Jiu would treat him like this. Is Fu Jiu really in love with that fat pig? Not necessarily. Didn't they say that Fu Jiu is gay? Look at his attitude towards girls. Does he look like a gay? He is obviously straight. But he liked handsome Jiang and said that he wanted to keep almighty Qin. How do you explain that? I don't care. Anyway, my Highness Jiu is straight now. In order to protect Fujio's reputation, the school had set up a small group of fans. They affectionately called Fujio Highness Joe. Because every time their highness appeared, that evil look, that attitude of oppressing scumbags, that bright and translucent eyes, that calm demeanor in front of the media, was very much like the ancient princes who held great power. As a result, the phrase, His Highness the Ninth, quickly appeared. Perhaps it was because birds of a feather flocked together, but everyone who liked Fujio had very good values. For example, they had long wanted to stand up for what happened today, but their individual power was limited. Plus, that boy was not someone to be messed with in school, and he had connections with people outside the school. Just when the three of them were hesitating whether to stand up for him or not, they saw His Highness Joe kick him. That action was extremely cool, and the kick was really satisfying. From that moment on, they decided that regardless of whether His Highness Joe was straight or gay, they would protect this young man. Fujio had no idea that she had gained 3 fans because of her actions. After assembling her laptop for a whole day yesterday, she just wanted to lie on her desk and sleep. It could be said that Fujio slept through the first 2 classes. With Shui Yaoyao covering for her, the teacher didn't notice. Jiang Feiyang, who was sitting on the other side, was a little absent-minded. He always wanted to look forward in the morning. He never thought that the weakling who once said that he liked him would actually be willing to not be his deskmate anymore. Chapter 103. When Fujio woke up again, it was already the 3rd period between classes. She didn't know what Jiang Feiyang was thinking, but he actually walked to her side, knocked on her desk, and asked in a low voice, "Are you really going to sit here?" Fujio looked at him with interest, and her left hand supported her chin lazily. Her gaze made Jiang Feiyang sober up immediately. What was he doing? Was he trying to make this little weakling go back? He was crazy. But young Master Jiang still bit the bullet and said, "Actually, you don't have to do this. The teacher will rearrange the seats next Monday, and let Shui Yaoyao sit with the girls. I think it's not bad here." Fujio smiled. "At least I don't have to worry about being reported in class." Jiang Feiyang knew that he was talking about him, and his face turned pale. He felt that this little weakling was completely unreasonable. He had already given him a way out, but he didn't want to. "Do whatever you want." Jiang Feiyang threw down this sentence and went back to his seat. His eyes were still filled with anger, and the girls who liked him didn't understand what was wrong with him. Shui Yaoyao also raised her head. Will I be a bad influence on you?" "Influence?" Fujio took out the modified English textbook from the desk and curled up her lips. "I'm the last student, so why should I be afraid of being influenced? You are better at studying than me, especially in physics. Is that really for humans to learn?" This wasn't the first time Fujio complained about physics, and it was obvious how much she hated this subject. Shui Yaoyao looked at the silver-haired young man sitting next to her with thin lips. Because he had just woken up, there were still a few strands of hair on top of his head. They were messy and a bit casual, as if they could grow a pair of ears. He was so handsome that it made people think that he was shamelessly cute. Shui Yaoyao had never been as happy as she was now. Shui Yaoyao really liked Fujio, and it wasn't the kind of love between a man and a woman. She knew that she didn't deserve the young man with her looks, and she wanted to repay him from the bottom of her heart. Even if he didn't need it, she wanted to make the young man feel comfortable. "In the future, if you have any questions about physics, I can." Before Shui Yaoyao could finish, the phone next to Fujio's hand rang. It wasn't a ringtone, but a vibration. No matter what, the school didn't allow students to bring their mobile phones, but rules were rules. Not many people would not bring their mobile phones. Fujio gestured for him to wait for a moment and then swiped the screen open. It was a WeChat message from Chin Mo. His voice was cold and indifferent, and he sounded like an abstinent CEO. I'll be near school at noon. Come out, I'll take you out for lunch. Socializing. I'm not going, I'll take a stroll in the game later. Brother Mo. I'm really still a student. Fu Jiu always felt that going to school wasn't that important in Almighty Chin's eyes. How could a straight-A student like him, who was guaranteed a spot in a prestigious university before even graduating, understand the pain of being a slacker? Sigh. Chin Mo paused for a moment, then used the tone of an older brother to remind her again, pay attention in class. Fu Jiu laughed when she heard that. She tilted her head and sent a voice message over. Don't worry, I'm usually very well behaved. My new desk mate is planning to tutor me in the future. Go ahead, see you after school. He thought that this matter was over. After all, there had been no news from the other side for a few minutes. Just when Fu Jiu was planning to dig out more members of the team, her phone vibrated again. So your grades are so bad that you need to tutor to reach the standard. Fu Jiu. Chapter 104. The main thing was that after saying this, Boss Chin didn't have any intention of restraining himself. Then he added, what rank did you get last time? Fu Jiu's fingers paused. She really didn't want to answer this question, because it was a huge blow to her. She almost suspected that the Almighty said that on purpose. With the Almighty's black-bellied personality, it was very possible. She really couldn't reply to such a man. Fu Jiu decisively put her phone in the desk. Not long after, he was shocked again. There are more than 50 people in your class. You should be in the top 40, right? Fu Jiu still didn't say anything. She was sure that the Almighty did it on purpose. Top 45. Fu Jiu's handsome face fell even more. When he felt that it was about time, the man slowly replied, don't tell me you're in the last 3. Instead of being tortured by the Almighty again and again, she might as well admit it herself. Fu Jiu sent 2 words over gloomily, fall 1. Oh. Chin Mo's beautiful tone was raised with an obvious smile. So that's how it is. Fu Jiu. What else could it be? Almighty, you asked so many questions because you already knew that I was a slacker. 11:05 p.m. In a 5-star hotel, the table was full of dishes. It was a bit early for ordinary people to eat, but not for business. Chatting with the young man while the dishes were being served really increased one's appetite. Chin Mo looked at the ellipses on the screen, and the young man's depressed face appeared in his mind again. He couldn't help but smile. Secretary Liang stood beside him and saw his CEO's sudden smile. He couldn't help but shiver. When did CEO Chin ever smile during a business meeting? And CEO Chin didn't have the habit of holding his phone. He secretly nodded and saw Fu Jiu's name on the screen. At this moment, Secretary Liang's heart was in a mess. A mess that couldn't be described. The person who came for business was also from an aristocratic family, but he was more than 10 years older than Chin Mo. Seeing him smile, he raised his eyebrows. When they were almost done with the project, Chin Mo asked indifferently, I heard that CEO Xiao has a brother who is in high school. CEO Xiao was stunned. It seemed that he didn't expect the powerful young Master Chin to talk about such private matters. He smiled and said, yes, I do have a brother. How is his study? Chin Mo picked up the glass of red wine and took a sip. His handsome face didn't change at all, as if he was just having a casual chat. CEO Xiao smiled bitterly. To be honest, it's not good. I have to attend a parent-teacher conference on his behalf tomorrow. Parent-teacher meeting. Qin Mo repeated these 3 words, a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes deepened, no one knew what he was thinking. President Xiao continued, but I can't blame him. Even I can't understand the current high school textbooks. Those questions are too difficult. I'm planning to find a private tutor to tutor him. Qin Mo didn't reply. President Xiao thought that he was unhappy, but he knew when to stop. Look at me, I talk a lot when I talk about my brother. It's nothing. I have a younger brother too. I understand that feeling. Qin Mo's expression was still calm. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit, looking noble and luxurious. What he said almost made Secretary Liang spit out the red wine in his mouth. CEO Qin, CEO Zhao's son is his biological brother, but yours isn't. Chapter 105. After Fu Jiu sent the last ellipsis, she turned on her phone's hotspot and put up her English textbook. Everyone thought that she was reading a book, including the teacher in class. Only Shui Yaoyao, who was sitting next to her, knew that she wasn't reading a book, but a small notebook. She looked at the exquisite little book of the knife and axe divine skill and covered her mouth in shock. She was afraid that she would scream and expose Fu Jiu's secret to the teacher. Who would have thought that what was supposed to be an English textbook would turn out to be a computer? How did he do it? Shui Yaoyao looked at the young man's perfect side profile. She wasn't stupid. She knew that this kind of notebook couldn't be bought, and it didn't even have a logo on it. Anyone with basic computer science would know that this was a top-notch notebook. Why did he have a notebook like this? He was just an ordinary young man. He used to be an arrogant and despotic nouveau riche. Was all this just a disguise? Shui Yaoyao looked at that pair of slender hands moving beautifully on the keyboard. She also played games, so she knew that the more powerful a person was, the more silent his typing was. And, when the young man was typing, he didn't look down at all. He supported his chin with one hand and looked at the podium with his beautiful eyes, as if he wasn't typing, but listening to the class. How powerful must he be to be able to do this? Shui Yaoyao clenched her fists, and an indescribable excitement flowed through her blood. As a poor person, she knew that Director Zhang's incident wasn't something that could be exposed so easily. She knew how deep Director Zhang's connections were in the school. How did such a private message come about? Who could have triggered such a powerful network effect in just one night? There must be someone behind all of this. Perhaps Chief Zhang would hate this pusher. But as the victims, they could go back to school and clear her name as a thief, all because of this person. That was the hero she wanted to thank the most. More and more voices were distorted because they didn't have enough connections or money. But at that time, Shui Yaoyao saw a lot of hope. She had been wondering who that person was, and even the police had no clue. Now, she finally knew who that person was. It turned out that he was sitting right next to her, protecting her time and time again. Shui Yaoyao put down her trembling right hand, grabbed the carbon pen, and wrote a note. Because she was too excited, her beautiful handwriting was a little crooked. You're the one who did Director Zhang, aren't you? Fu Jiu was still multitasking as she searched for team members in the game. The English textbook shell in her hand was the result of her staying up all night last night. She had ordered the shell online, and it took a lot of effort to install and run it. A piece of paper suddenly appeared in front of her. The words on the paper were blurred by her tears, but they were even clearer. Fu Jiu paused and turned to look at Shui Yaoyao. Seeing this, Shui Yaoyao tore another piece of paper and quickly wrote, I don't have any other intentions and I won't tell anyone. I just want to. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.